Greetings again, 2%ers. Yes, another video already, and I know what you're thinking. Gosh, it's almost like going to more than one Christmas party at work, except without the stress that you'll be laid off the next day. What we have here is Buick Rendezvous, I think a 2005 or 6. I've actually never heard of a Buick Rendezvous, so I don't know, kind of an interesting looking car, but the owner states that he purchased the car approximately 2 weeks ago, and of course, almost immediately the check engine light came on after he bought it. He says the car seems to run fine. He had to top it off with coolant a couple times in the 2 weeks, and other than that, he's concerned about if he got himself a bum deal. So one of the things we will do, besides find out what the situation is we are going to investigate something that when I pulled the car into the garage, I could not help but notice. So let's go on a little treasure hunt. All right, let's get a look here. Wait a minute. Nope. Nope. Let's see here. Oh yeah, here we go. Let's see here. There we go. All right. Nice. There was an overwhelming odor in this car, and this guy needs to do a much better job of hiding that. But then again, it is Colorado. We are a little more liberal on stuff like that. But anyway, I was just curious. All right, it's about high time we weed out this problem. Long crank time. It's got one of those automatic cranks, and if you heard, let me try that again. This car's got a compression problem. And it started up much quicker then, but I'm gonna say, based on that initial long crank time listening to it, I don't know if you could catch it, but this car has a definite compression problem. We do have the check engine light on. I just wanted to verify that. So let's put on the scan tool, see what we get. So let's get our scan tool on and see what those codes are for the check engine light. But I did intentionally wait about 7 or 8 minutes for doing this because... Nice. And let's take a look at our codes. I wasn't sure which interface to use, if it was OBD2, but then it occurred to me it's probably the CAN bus. And we have, well, an 0420. Nice. Already a bummer when you buy a new car right there. Car's going to need a Bank 1 cat, most likely for sure. Well, except we have other codes down here too. So let's zoom in on that a little bit. And the reason I'm a little more worried about the other codes is because they are congruent with a compression problem. The 0420 is certainly separate. But we do have low voltage on bank 1 with a P0300 misfire. Funny, the car did seem once it started to run perfectly fine, but I have not driven it other than up my driveway. I was afraid of getting a contact buzz otherwise. The too few switches. These are all consistent with a fairly significant lean condition. And we also have a maximum adaptation on the well, actually I was thinking that was short-term fuel trim. That may be more of a transmission code, actually, so I take that back. But let's do this. Let's take a look at some fuel trim numbers on this thing and get an idea if we are looking at some kind of issue with misfire. Maybe that, I don't know, threw me off with what the compression sounded like. I don't think so. And just narrow this down a little more. All right, pleased to see this car has the 3400 in it, the GM 3400, an engine I am very familiar with. You see a lot of these, even if you're just a do-it-yourselfer like me. These are very, very, very common engines. So what I want to do is look at some fuel trim on here. Let me see if we've got oh good, we don't have drive-by-wire on it, so I'll be able to set up my scan tool accordingly here. Let's get this engine started and see what's causing that 0300 misfire. All right, let's just quickly get some fuel trim numbers here. I'm going to go long-term fuel trim. Why is there only one bank? Didn't this happen last time? Oh, how aggravating is that? let's pull engine RPM up here. And then let's put long-term fuel trim. Why is there only one bank of long-term fuel trim? That is really annoying, especially considering the fact that we're expecting a possible cylinder head problem, which would be bank specific. That is unbelievable. Long-term fuel trim, only one bank. Why is that? Oh, man. So fuel trim actually looks pretty good right now. Let's see what it looks like under load. Oh, wow. It really jumps up under load, no question. And the engine did seem to stumble a little bit for me. Yeah, not quite crazy about that, to be honest. So based on this, obviously looking at potential MAF sensor. I don't have enough data to go on, though. Let's go over to this live data grid and see if we can pull up fuel trims for both banks. I really would like that. And let's see what our... And only one short-term fuel trim. How aggravating this is. Let me just double check to make sure I've got the right year of car installed here and that I'm just not missing data for some reason that way. So I'll be right back. All right, well, it is the right parameters that I put in there. So I went ahead and restarted my scan tool just to see if I can get this critical data that I need. Let's see if we get our just one long-term fuel trim. Why is that? And interesting now that it's showing negative. Let's see. Yeah, it does not like throttle. One thing I will tell you, this engine has a miss. I can hear it put, 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 put. And that's something I don't like. The fans just came on, and this engine hasn't been running more than a couple minutes. Let's pull up engine temperature. We're about ready to make a call on a head gasket for sure here. Oh, ouch. That's the engine temperature right there. And yeah, you can definitely hear there's a steady kind of put, 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 put. Let's take a look at the back of the car real quick. And this, of course, not a definitive test, but I can actually tell by the pattern of the smoke coming out that we've clearly got a head gasket problem on this car. There is no question about it. It's really cold outside, so this isn't totally definitive, but at this car being fully warmed up, and if you notice the pattern of the smoke coming out, this car's got a blown head gasket. And just in that short time, we see we're running into trouble here. I'm going to turn this car off. I don't want to have this car melt down here right in front of me. All right, both fans are operating, trying to cool this thing down. So I don't want to be like Cooter on Dukes of Hazzard, diagnosing a head gasket based on just observational data like that. Of course, that is not my style, especially considering the importance of this with this guy just buying this car a couple weeks ago. So he said the engine light came on after he bought the car. My guess is obviously the owner reset the check engine light. Sometimes I can get a time since last clear parameter, which I can't even get two banks on this car, much less get that. But sometimes you can get a time since last memory clear and all that, and it does not look like that's available. I just wanted to see if it was congruent with having been cleared at the time of purchase or so. But what we'll do now is we're going to assume that our issue, obviously, we could also have a fuel pump issue for sure. We could have a MAF sensor issue, but it doesn't explain the situation we're seeing with this overheat. That is for sure. Let's confirm 100% we've got blown head gasket. And I think what I'm going to do in the sake of time is just do a relative compression test, because these 3400 engines have the coil right over the rear bank. And I just, it's only a couple bolts. It's really easy to do this, but I just don't want to spend time doing something that everybody watching this channel knows how to do and just do a compression test, or better yet, a leak down test on this. So what my strategy is here is just to get 100% quantitative validation on this. I want to isolate if the compression failure is at the front of the engine, which is very easy to access. If it is, we will go ahead and validate a compression failure 100%. If it's on the back of the engine, then we'll just basically go off of quantitative inferenced data. So let's do that. All right, well, as much as I suspect that this car has a better chance of passing a drug test than a compression test, I'm not going to be able to do the relative compression test because the location of the battery cable is just in such a location I can't get my amp clamp on it for my scope, and the other problem is the diameter of the cable is too big. So the first thing I want to do is just validate 100% that we do have a compression problem, like a head gasket problem on this that is linked with the cooling system. So we'll just run a couple quick things here. We've done this on another video. Oil cap looks fine. There's no foam on it or anything. Just a bunch of hack tests here. Obviously, I like doing things considerably more quantitative. And let's just test that we've got coolant in here, and we do. I know the owner said he filled it up with coolant. I'm sure he did on the way over to my house. And also there is actually a whole thing of coolant, a gallon of coolant in the passenger compartment of the car. So it looks like we've got a good coolant level. I'm a little bit hesitant to open this radiator cap here, but I think our best option to just verify 100% we've got a head gasket problem is going to be with a chemical test on this car. I still like to validate that test further with an actual compression test, so maybe we'll just take a guess on that the compression problem happens to be on this side of the engine. I really like a better way of doing that, though. I wonder if I can come up with some way of knowing that the compression problem is going to be on this front bank here. But let's, before we do anything there, confirm that we've got a head gasket problem, or at least a compression problem here. All right, so far so good there. Let's see here. Looks like I've got enough space in there to do my chemical test. So let's do the chemical test and verify that we do have a compression problem where the combustion is entering the cooling system. All right, let's see if this shows up in camera there. Oh, that looks good. All right, let's pump this up a little bit. May take a second or two for the gases to fill up the cooling system. And I'm already not liking the way this is going. You can see it's already turning kind of yellowish. And actually I have to stop. As you can see, we're already bubbling coolant out. Let me get something under this vehicle and then we'll try to rerun that test again. And based on that, there's no question in my mind. We saw the chemical test start to turn yellow just before that happened. And at the rate that's coming out, and also the rhythm that's coming out, this is obviously a head gasket. All right, I've drained some of the coolant out. Again, you don't want to draw that coolant up in this thing. And we can see it's already starting to turn a little bit lighter color. Yeah, without question. That's a positive test right there for sure. So we're done. And there goes the fan already again. All right, this next sequence, I will admit, is arguably a little bit silly because it's probably going to take longer to set this up than it will if I just take a 50-50 guess and do compression tests on the front bank of the engine here, hoping that that's where the compression problem is. But any monkey can do a compression test on the engine. I just want to do this mostly for demonstration. Some of you guys have the scope and you've asked me to show you how to do some of these things. So this will be mostly for demonstration. Plus also it just keeps me from getting any dirtier than I need to. But obviously my recommendation, if I weren't filming this, I probably myself would just take a guess and do a compression test on the front of the engine. But what we're going to do is I did notice after a little further review that I'm going to be able to get my amp clamp on the negative cable from the starter. So it's not my favorite way of doing the relative compression test. I usually end up with a much noisier signal, but we're just going to give this a try. I don't know. Can always edit it out, I guess. So let's see here. Let's get on to the negative. And oh, you know what? Fuse box right here. I was just going to say, I don't have to move the camera now. We can just make a remote starter here. Let's see. It says, I just noticed it says crank aptly fit for this car. All right, and right there is a diagram. So very good. Most people always carry a screwdriver with them in their pocket. I personally opt for a paper clip. So we want to be very sure we don't jump the control side on this. And let's see, it looks like right there, so it should be, let me disconnect the coil, I believe is going to be the best way to do this. All right, and let's just verify this works, make sure I'm not crazy. All right, excellent. So now we've got a remote starter, and let's set up a scope. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you notice the inconsistency. This is not working so well. Let's try getting somewhere in the, a little bit later on. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, this is just terribly inconsistent here. Yeah, not liking this at all. So I'm not sure whether this is because the engine's cooled down by this time or because my being on the negative terminal, but this is kind of a common thing I see. I really am not crazy about this. But we'll try to go with what our best guess is on which cylinder is going to be the lowest, and we'll do our compression test there. So what I need to do is do a cylinder identification. I think what I'll try to do is an inductive probe on a spark plug wire. We've got spark plug number 2 right here in front of me, so let's try that. So on 3400, we should be going 246 in the front. I'm going to opt for number 2, just no reason at all. It's just there. And this will be our channel 2. All right, so now we'll want channel 2. Let's try 1 volt. Let's do that. Make sure we're on the same time scale. I think that may work, except for one problem. I did disable the coil, so we need to reconfigure here. Let's see, fuel pump right there. Let me plug the coil back in so we ensure we get a signal. There we go. And let's give this a try. Car will probably start, I would imagine. Nope. It looks like we don't have enough sensitivity, I would say, here. Let's try that, see if we get a spike on that ignition. There we go. Get a good capture here. All right, excellent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. Okay, great. So we can see our ignition spike there. So it's actually going to be number 2 right there. And firing order on this engine, I believe, is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if I remember. I better check to be sure, so I'll be back. All right, it is indeed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that makes it pretty easy. So that's going to be 2, 1, which I don't like. That's going to be a low compression on the back bank. Although 2 looks a little bit low too, doesn't it? But 2, 1, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Notice the inconsistency here. Not like it. Let's move to another location. So it'll be 2, 1, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Well, 2 itself may actually arguably be a good, so there we are at the top of the thing. Let's move over to another one here. Let's try this one. 2, 1, cylinder number 1 definitely seems to consistently have higher compression, doesn't it? 2, 1, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Let's see what we got. 2, 3, 4. Boy, 4 right here is pretty low as well. Let's see if we can catch another time. We just have such inconsistency here. It's a little aggravating. All right. 2, and there's 1 being really low. 6, 5, 4. Well, 4 tends to be lower a couple times. Let's see if we can catch 4 on the start. There's 2, 1, 6, 5. Well, 4 is pretty high there. 3, 2. And that's the start. We just don't have enough data here, I think, maybe. 2, 6. 2, 1, 6, 5. Well, there's another 4 right there. So it does look like our best chance is going to be on cylinder number 4. This is not exactly as consistent as I would hope. But let's pull that number 4, do a leak down test, and see if we can verify 100% that we do have a compression problem leading to combustion entering the cooling system. I just wanted to show you one thing I typically see, and you guys do too on this channel a lot, and that is I definitely wasn't the first person to be here. The spark plug wires I did notice are obviously brand new on this car, and the other thing, when I remove the spark plug, I have no idea how many miles are on this car, but I guarantee you that that plug is brand new. So very typically people do parts changing like that. Plugs and wires every time. I imagine the owner was trying to fix this thing before he ultimately found out that his car went up in smoke. Nice. All right, I believe we're about at top dead center. Usually I actually just ratchet the engine into the top dead center position after I connect up my leak down tester. Some of you may be wondering why I just went right to the leak down instead of compression test. When I'm in my garage, I don't see a reason to do a compression test. Just do the leak down. It's the same thing, and you just get more data. But let me make sure that I don't have anything when this engine rotates that's going to be in the way. It looks pretty clear. So let's see what happens. And let's see, we probably need to spin that engine a little bit more because we've got really high leak down. So let's do that. And to the idiots that go off on me for using a torque wrench on this, I'm well below the torque. It's far worse on a torque wrench to turn a lug nut than an engine over. Always the people that don't know what they're doing seem to give me comments. Man, I wonder how many degrees off I am from top dead center compression on this thing. Oh, yeah, that's right. 420. Nice. All right, there we go. Now we're... All right, there we go. So now you can see our leak down gauge moving. Oh, and there it is. Hopefully that's showing up. Oh, yeah, I'm sure that is. Well, that's a blown head gasket right there. We are done. Well, very disappointing end to this video. Well, not because the car has a bad head gasket, because my hands are dirty and now I've got to take a bath. But the moral we've learned here is never buy a car when you're high, and also stay clean so you can make good, rational, logical diagnoses and not take a car with a bad head gasket and try changing plugs and wires on a potluck guess as if that's going to do anything. What a waste of time and money that was. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and add this video to the stash, and we will catch you next time. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you had a good time. Hope you found this helpful.